I hope you've all had a very Merry Christmas weekend over the last few days for those of you that celebrate, and today's kind of feeling like a little bit of an extra Christmas gift for me as I get to have our very first off season here on our Memphis Thunderbirds franchise here on Madden 24. And to be honest, off season 1 in these franchise series is kind of the most anticipated episode for me because it's when the series really begins to feel like it's yours. You know, the team feels like it's yours. This series is a little bit of an exception because we were able to handpick a few of these guys here that you see at the top to start this series, but still, even the rest of the team was kind of just put together of guys that, you know, I was kind of forced to take just based on what was available to me. But this offseason, I began to really build this team, and I'm excited to do it. But before we get too deep into this episode, I do want to remind everybody that in addition to being an expansion series, we also have some house rules that are involved in this series. We're going to go through them quickly here to start this off season, just because they're obviously going to play a big role here in what we are doing in this off season. And so in free agency, we can only have one player at or above 85 overall at a time of signing on our roster. So if we sign somebody in this free agency that's 85 overall or above, until that player is off the team, we cannot sign anybody else. And we can only have a total of 3 that are over 80 overall. So we decide that we want to make a splash or 2 in free agency, we have to know that that will come at the cost of not being able to sign players in later years as long as those guys remain on the roster. We can also only negotiate with players that have at least yellow interest in the team. And this will not be included in post-draft free agency, which of course will be the end here of this episode. But, you know, for the entire free agency period, we can only negotiate with people that are at least barely interested in joining our team, which is going to rule out some good free agents that I'll preview in a few moments here. And in the first week of free agency, I must offer at least the minimum of a player-friendly deal in terms of yearly value. I don't have to give them the full amount of years. So, for example, if the player-friendly preset option was 6 years, 60 million, I have to offer the player at least 10 million a year, but it doesn't have to be for 6 years. So if you wanted to offer them a 3-year contract, it would have to be at least $30 million. Also, for the draft, I'm not allowed to view mock draft 4 or 5 prior to the draft. So mock draft 3, which comes out at the beginning of the offseason, is the most we'll have to go on as to what's going to happen in the draft. And of course, a lot can change based on free agency and stuff like that. This just makes it fun because I feel like mock draft 5 is too much of an actual preview of what goes down in the draft. And in reality, you don't really know what other people are going to do in the draft. And so me not having the option to know exactly what's going to go down in the draft, or at least 90% what's going to go down in the draft, I think is going to make it much more random and fun. I can only add 1 additional first round pick to the number that I start the draft with. So for this draft, we only have 1 first round pick. That means I can have a maximum of 2. I can't finagle my way into a 3rd first round pick this year, even though you know I want to. And then one that I added here in this episode, this was not part of the day 1 house rules, is I can only make 2 total draft day trades that involve picks in rounds 1 through 4. I think this will make it so I can't just scoot my way all around the draft board, getting a pick wherever I want to. I have to pick and choose where I want to trade because, you know, I only have a limited amount of trades I can do. This does not involve picks, you know, in rounds 5 through 7, just because I feel like teams always just kind of move those picks around, and I'm fine to do the same here. But, you know, those top 100, top 120 picks are really valuable to teams, and so typically they don't make that many trades. I'm sure everyone could think of at least one time where their team made 3 trades, you know, in the first 3 rounds of a draft or whatever. But this is to add challenge. That's the whole point of these house rules, is to add a little bit of realism, but even more so to add a challenge here into this series. Don't think we'll use these 2, but I'll just mention them here. I can only, quote unquote, buy 1 player that's worth more than a day 3 pick per season. I don't imagine we're going to be in, you know, buy mode, so I don't think we'll even use this. And then if we were to use the trade finder, which we might, I cannot trade for a starter that is offered on the trade finder. Some teams just offer their best player at a certain position to improve another, which is just, you know, one step forward, one step back. It doesn't really do much for them. So just avoiding the teams that offer really stupid trades. Again, I don't think we'll be using either of these. If we make any trades, it will probably be just for draft picks. And so this will be kind of the only trade. These two, I guess, will be the only two trade-centered house rules that we'll probably be dealing with today. But of course, these three up here make a massive difference in free agency, and these here make a massive difference in the draft. And so we got to plan around these house rules here in this episode. So with that being said, I have gone through, I have made a big old list of what I think are all the needs we have for this offseason, some for free agency, some for the draft, and I've made my game plan. And so let's go through and just talk about first needs. Having those needs laid out on the table to start, I think, is important so that you know why I'm making moves that I'm making in free agency and in the draft. Starting off with quarterback. We do not have a quarterback on the roster. No quarterback on the roster. So what do I need? In free agency, I want to find somebody that is a bridge quarterback. That if he needs to start for us next year, he can, because there's no guarantee that the draft goes our way. We might not be able to sign somebody in the draft that can start for us year one. I'll preview the draft and who I think from the draft could be there, but just in case we can't get any of those guys, gotta sign somebody that can at least start for us next year, if not for a couple of years, and be that bridge quarterback. I also want to sign a mentor. I have this written down as something that we could probably get in undrafted free agency after the draft, just so that we're not restricted by them actually needing to want to come to our team. And then, if possible, a young quarterback in the draft. I want all those things. I want one in free agency, I want one in UDFA, and I want one in the draft, because we have 0. And you probably want 3. So if we can get one in each of these periods, I think that would be a win. Running back, I don't think that's a position that we really touch until undrafted free agency. That's probably the one position on the entire team that I just don't think we need to touch. I really like Robinson as our RB1. Really like Keaton Mitchell as our RB2. The one thing I have is a power back. We're talking probably, around 6 or 7 pick, or a UDFA is the highest I'd spend on running back this year. Fullback, same thing, late pick, UDFA if we want to add one. Wide receiver, the number one thing I want here is route running. We just do not have good route running on the team. Short route running. Jalen Moreno-Cropper here at 68 overall is our best. He's kind of our best across the board route running, and we don't have anybody who has a single route running at any level above 77. We have some athletes, particularly you think of Anthony Schwartz and Tyquan Thornton as these two blazing speed athletes, but we don't have route running. So I want to spend some money in free agency this year on a route running wide receiver. And then I also want to, if we can, get a young building block wide receiver. You'll notice as I kind of go through my free agency wants, is my goal in free agency is to make sure that we're not pigeonholed into taking any position. Because we don't see mock draft 4 and mock draft 5, and because we're limited in the amount of trades we can do, there's no guarantee that we get everything we want in the draft. There's never that guarantee, but I feel like in previous series, I've been able to maneuver my way around the board. I knew what was happening in the first round. And so I was able to pretty accurately predict what we were going to do in the draft. That's going to be a lot less so this year. So I need to use free agency to make sure that if something that I thought was going to happen, something that I thought for sure we were going to get, we're not going to get it, I got to fill those holes in free agency. Tight end, we only have one on the roster. That's Max Williams, who had a really good start to the season for us. Tail off a little bit. What I have here is I want an athlete who can block and another depth blocker. I feel like just the way the team's constructed at the moment, we're very much so likely to be a run-heavy team for the foreseeable future, so I want my tight ends to be able to block. Don't have a tackle, but going across the entire offensive line, we can shuffle some interior offense, especially because we have 4 left guards and no right guards. We'll shuffle that around once we get to the end of the off season and we know exactly what we have. But I have a lot. We're going to be using a lot of resources on offensive line. I want to sign a starting interior offensive lineman in free agency. I also want to start a bridge tackle in free agency. Somebody that, if we don't end up getting a starting level tackle, that we can start them and feel pretty good about that left tackle spot. Mike Remmers was terrible. Need to be better next year. And then on top of that, in addition, I'd love to take 2 linemen in this class. Especially, I'd like to take a tackle. Would also love to take an interior offensive lineman if we can. And that pretty much wraps up the offense here. Honestly, I think we have 2 starting linemen. Cole Strange and Paris Johnson are going to start. And if we need to start Ben Cleveland, I don't think that would be the worst thing. He's not atrocious, but he's pretty bad. I take that back. He's pretty atrocious. So would love to not have to start any of these other guys here on the interior offensive line. And so 3 new starters, at least 1 through free agency, 1 to 2 through free agency, and 1 to 2 through the draft. It kind of just depends on how the draft goes. For edge rusher, I really want a 3rd edge. I think Uche and Anthony Jennings did just fine for us last year. I want a better alternative if they go down. I think Isaiah Thomas and Sam Roberts just aren't enough. Now, there is a possibility that we draft an edge highly. We'll talk about the top options there because there are a lot of good options at edge, and that pushes probably Uche, just because at least to start this year, Jennings would have to start after how productive he was last year. And then all of a sudden our edge rush looks fine. But again, my goal of free agency is to not pigeonhole myself into anything. So I want to sign that 3rd edge in case we do not end up taking an edge rusher. Interior defensive line, I need another starter alongside Jalen Carter. And I would also love another backup with pass rush upside. Tufele is more of a run stopper. So if I can get no backup that could at least maybe win an occasional pass rush rep, that would be fine by me. Linebacker, I just really want a 2nd starter. And this one I have free agency or the draft, I don't care. But I feel like the depth there is certainly fine. And Mac Wilson's going to be one of the starting backers for us next year. But I don't love anyone else here that we have on the roster to tandem with him. Secondary wise, I want a 2nd starter and maybe even a slot as well. So I think at least 1 new starter at the corner spot, if not 2. And so I want to sign at least 1 free agency guy that could start, and then maybe we'll see if we'll draft one as well. Safety, I just want a brand new duo. I don't think we have a starting caliber safety here. So we're gonna at least sign 1 starting caliber safety in free agency, if not 2. And that will be the plan there. Didn't really put anything for kicker and punter. Ryland was fine. Behringer was bad, but I think that's just Madden is bad at punting in CPU versus CPU formats. I don't know if getting a better punter is really going to do all that much for us. So that are our team needs. With that, let's go ahead and look at free agency and see at all these different positions what kind of players fit our needs. Let's start here with quarterback. We need somebody that could start for us in case of not being able to draft everybody. And the top player who actually is interested in joining up with us is Baker Mayfield, 76 overall. Playing quite well in real life with Tampa right now, if you ask me. But really good short accuracy, really good play action, decent athlete, strong arm. My one thing with him is paranoid sense of pressure. I do not like much at all. So that worries me a little bit. But, you know, going into this season with Baker Mayfield is certainly an option. The other guy I like here is Jacoby Brissett, who just kind of seems to be like, when I think bridge quarterback, I think of Jacoby Brissett, like good enough to start, but not so good that you're like, want him to be your plan A as a starter. That's exactly what I'm looking for here in free agency. And not to mention, he would cost a whole lot less than Baker. So if we go with Baker, we're pretty much saying we give Baker a 2-year deal. Let's just go in and see what he's asking for here. $22 million a year. We could give him that. Oh no, that's the neutral. The player friendly, we're talking about giving him $25 million a year as a minimum for a couple of years. So that's starter money. We definitely have it. Even with this, we still have over 100 million remaining. Do we want to commit to Baker being the short-term starter? That's the question. Or do you want to go and get a Jacoby Brissett who's only asking for $5 million a year? We can get him, the same 2 years, something like 2 years, $10 million. So those, I think, are our options at quarterback. Not really worried about running back, like I said. Wide receiver. If you go through wide receiver and look at route running, which is what I wanted, the best short route runner, Gabe Davis. The best mid route runner, Gabe Davis. The best deep route runner, Gabe Davis. And a lot of these are pretty big gaps. He's the best by 8 here. He's the best by 4 here. And the best by just 2 here. I will say the next best player that I want to preview, just because he's towards the top here, is Josh Reynolds. He's probably the second best route runner in this class. And the one problem with him, he has no speed. But I do think he complements what we have at receiver already. We already have, the athletes who can't really play the position well. Whereas Josh Reynolds is kind of the opposite. Good at running routes, but not an athlete at all. And so, despite the fact that he's not a perfect player by any means, I do think he's a good complement. We have players that separate with their speed, need players that separate with their routes. Josh Reynolds is one of them. But the question is, do we take that guy who's solid, but not great, kind of like a borderline starter, or do you take a player here in Gabe Davis, who could be your wide receiver 1? He would take our 185 plus slot that we have on the team. If we sign him, he's the best free agent we can have on the team for as long as his contract is with us. And so, is it worth it? And I think that's the question we have to answer. And I think the point of this whole house rules is to make sure that we just don't sign this God squad in free agency. We don't want these overpowered free agents. And so Gabe Davis being that one guy, I don't think he's overpowered, but I think he'd fit in and fill a really big need. So I'm definitely considering it. Tight end, not a great class for us. Taysom Hill's the highest overall guy who has interested in joining our team. And then you go down to Jordy Fortson, who's 226 pounds, not really a true tight end. So free agency, not very kind to us here. A couple guys you like, we could bring back Rookie Seals Jones. Brock Wright's 25 years old. And where's the guy that I was thinking of before when I was previewing? Chris Manhertz here. He's kind of the depth blocker from this class. If that's what you're looking for, which, like I said, I am. Offensive line. Obviously, you'd love to get a Tyron Smith, but he has no interest in our team. Can't offer him. The other guy who has no interest in our team that I would love to get if he did was Cesar Ruiz. 25 years old and just really good balance ratings now. We could make him very interested in us if we were to change our scheme. And here's going to be kind of my rule of thumb when it comes to that. I think if it makes sense for them to be a scheme fit by changing your scheme, then I'll do it. But the reality is with this team, we are more of a zone running scheme. He wants to be in a power running scheme. So switching our scheme doesn't actually make sense. He is not a scheme fit. There are other players that we'll talk about later in free agency where changing the scheme fit to increase their interest actually does make sense. But he's just not one of them. We're not a power running team. And so changing our scheme for him to be interested in us just feels a little bit like cheating to me. So unfortunately, the best interior offensive lineman on the market, in my opinion, we just can't sign. He doesn't want to be with us. So the best tackle and the best interior offensive lineman, just not an option for us. Now, I do think there's a pretty decent consolation prize here for kind of a bridge, a stopgap starter here is Connor McGovern. Decent enough athlete, pretty solid all-around player, 31 years old, not asking for much, and has the interest in us. You could also go for Tyler Biadasz here. 26 years old. He's just probably a little bit too slow and a little bit not strong enough for me. So even though he's 5 years younger, I would probably prefer Connor McGovern. So flipping down to the defensive side, is there anybody that we like here? Tyquan Thornton to kind of be that third edge makes some sense. Rasheem Green, just, you know, we're talking about a top end backup. I don't think there's really too much stress in this decision. I think this is something that we can prioritize later on in free agency. The one guy maybe worth going on early is Leonard Williams. Now, here's the guy who you can actually make the argument for changing your scheme fit. We're a 4-3. He's a run stopper. In our scheme, he would not play end, he would play defensive tackle. And the scheme fit for defensive tackle is run stopper. So in this sense, I think it would make sense to change your scheme, because we would be changing his position so that he would be a scheme fit on our team at the position he would play on our team. And so do you spend 1 year 80+ overall slots on a guy like Leonard Williams, who could come in, have block shed, have power moves, and I think just be a really solid fit next to Jalen Carter? Not to mention, next year he'll be gaining the mentor tag, so he'll start to boost XP for his other fellow interior defensive lineman. He is somebody that I'm certainly interested in this free agency. You got to remember, we also only have 5 available negotiations, so I'm going through everybody first, and then I'll start to do my 5 negotiations from there. Linebackers, there's a couple guys that I think are pretty interesting. You'd love to be able to get a Devin White, but he's not interested. Another guy, Devin Bush, is available here. 26 years old, 70 overall. He's kind of more athlete than finished product here, but I think he's better than Wilson, who we already have on the squad and could be our best linebacker should we sign him. He's interested in the squad. The other guy is Sione Taki out of BYU, 28 years old here. I think a little bit less of an athlete, but just a little bit maybe better at football. So do you go athlete or do you go kind of skill set here? I think both are good fits to fill that linebacker slot in free agency. Corner. Really, there's a couple of guys who are a bit later in their career, you know. And this is a position that does kind of fall off hard, but Levi Wallace, I think, would be a solid pick. My personal favorite, though, is down here a little bit, just because we can get somebody who's young in Bryce Hall. Not very athletic, but I think could easily play slot for us and could play on the outside if we needed to. Actually played a pretty good game against us when he was on the Jets last year. So that kind of caught my attention. Is, you know, stealing from a division rival is always an added bonus. And the same could be said all the way back to receiver with Gabe Davis. Safety here. Again, looking for a whole new duo. There's one guy who's interested, but he has 86 speed. The other guy that I think would make sense to increase his interest by changing our scheme is Grant Delpit, because his scheme fit is zone, and free safety, our scheme fit is zone. So we could change our scheme, find one that has strong safety zone scheme fit, because he would be playing free safety on our team, which is a scheme fit. And you could get a 25-year-old superstar player at a position that we desperately need. Safeties might be the worst position on our entire roster right now. So we need to offer him at least $9 million a year. Yeah, 8.9 to be exact, but we just go here. This is $9 million a year. 5 years at $9 million a year. I'm absolutely willing to offer that. Let's just see where that puts us. That puts us 2 bars above anybody else. He has one other offer. I want to make sure he doesn't accept that. So player friendly. Let's do like a 2-year 10 for Bryce. I'm going to offer Jacoby Brissett, just because it's so much bigger of a commitment for Baker Mayfield than it is for Jacoby Brissett. And I also just like Jacoby's traits more. So we're the only team offering him, but I want to make sure we get quarterback taken care of. So he's going to be one of our 5 week 1 offers. Another one here is going to be Connor McGovern. Another position where we just need so much on the offensive line that I think you've got to get at least that first guy locked up. So I have decided to offer Gabe Davis. That one is. I thought we already tried that. Interesting. I just offered that one because that was my favorite one. I thought they were all 4. Okay. So our 5 offers here in free agency, we're using up 2 of our 80+ overall spots and our 185 overall spot. We're also looking to get a starting center in Connor McGovern, a starting corner in Bryce Hall, and a potential starting quarterback here in Jacoby Brissett. These are the 5. Let's go ahead and evaluate our offers. Everybody but Grant Delpit signed. They all signed with us. Yes, they did. Gabe Davis was the one that was unsure. Grant Delpit, despite a 5-bar offer, did not decide to sign with us, huh? But now let's go to the linebacker spot. We go for Devin Bush. To go for Taki. We're not going for Taki. All right. That means we're going for Bush. I think a 1-year offer for Bush. Let's go to Blackman now. He has one other offer. I think. Let's just go get this duo. We'll go 2 years here and 12 million. This is pretty much everybody from week 1 that I want to offer. These are the only guys good enough to offer the player-friendly deals. 2 say yes to somebody. Grant Delpit and Devin Bush both say yes to us. So we've gotten some pretty good upgrades here in this free agency period. Blackman still says no after 1 week and a 5-bar offer. Now we're here in week 2 of free agency. Worth mentioning that Blackman did decide to sign with us over the transition between week 1 and week 2. So here's a list of offers we're doing, and I think this will pretty much wrap up free agency once we sign these guys. Evan Givens, just trying to sign him for 1 year. He doesn't much like the offer. We'll see if he gets a better one. Tershawn Wharton is, I think, the backup with pass rush upside. He has pretty good finesse moves. Givens is supposed to fill that starting interior defensive line role. Parrott, again, kind of that bridge tackle, can start or be a backup. Wright is kind of an athlete, doesn't block much, but it's just what we've got here in the free agency. And then Manhertz is the depth blocker tight end. And with that, we've got pretty much everything that I wanted here in free agency. If we could sign these guys, we'll evaluate. It's like a couple more guys have joined. Parrott is here, Manhertz as well. And Givens has another offer, but it's not as good. So everybody that we gave at least 3 bars has decided to come with us. It's really now, we're just waiting to see if Givens is going to end up accepting this low ball offer. And that'll be it pretty much for the free agency portion. Now let's get into the draft, which I am very, very excited to get into in this episode. So taking our last look at the draft class prior to the actual draft here, I went through in the regular season kind of the top of this class. We're going to go through them again. And then I'm also going to talk about guys that I like down the board at each position as well. Let's hop into it. So starting at the quarterback spot, there are 3 quarterbacks that I like in this class. We've talked about Blatchford and Picard. I think, if I'm being honest, I don't know if we're taking Picard here in the first round. Just we don't know quite enough about him, and I don't know if I want to spend the knowledge, just because his traits, while not bad, they aren't perfect, and there's somebody that I kind of like down the board a little bit more and take Kelly, who we'll talk about in just a minute. But we've got to start with Kevin Blatchford. He is the best player in the class. We have the number 2 pick, and the New York Giants have the number 1 pick, and that is courtesy of a Thunderbirds and Giants game, which we won by half a yard in the last regular season. It was, turns out, a very brutal loss for us because we lost out on the chance to draft Kevin Blatchford. He is going number 1 overall. I'll show you in the mock draft 3 that we'll look at later. He's going there. The Giants haven't done anything in free agency that would make me think that they're not going, that they're, their pick's going to change between mock draft 3 and the draft. So Kevin Blatchford, not a mover at all, but has just an absolute cannon of an arm and is very, very accurate with the ball as well. A, awareness, A, to be under pressure, A, to be break sack, B, play action, A, deep accuracy, A, medium accuracy, and B, short accuracy. That's just about as good of a thrower of the football as you're going to find in this series, the entire series at the quarterback position. And so as long as you're fine with having a quarterback that's a pocket quarterback and is not going to go out and make plays outside of the pocket, this is going to be the best pocket quarterback in this series, I would venture to guess, especially because it stands well in the pocket and always aware of pressure. That's ideal sense of pressure. That's really big. Does well to avoid sack by throwing the ball away. Throws the ball away. Really good. Unfortunately, we don't know really what his decision making is. I think based on this, it's either going to be conservative or ideal, but it's very hard to tell between those two. So he could be a conservative decision maker instead of an ideal, which obviously would be a big negative point. But there's nothing in the traits that's going to tell you that. So it's a risk. There's a risk in drafting quarterback, and man, especially CPU versus CPU, when these player note traits really, really matter. He's got a really good fast over the top style of motion. He throws the spiral. There's really nothing not to like about this player, as long as, again, you don't feel like you need the speedy quarterback that can make plays with his leg. Best thrower of the football that many scouts have ever seen, and gonna go at number 1 in the class. Now, we did try to talk to the Giants. We called them up saying, hey, can we get to number 1? We like Kevin Blatchford. What would it take to get to number 1? And the Giants told us that it would take 3 firsts and 2 seconds. Right? That's right. Our first round pick this year, next year, and the year after that, as well as 2 second rounders. And I was actually discussing it with my scouts when the news dropped that during the spring meeting of kind of all the owners, where they discussed rule changes and such, the Eagles brought up a complaint about the fact that we stole Jalen Carter from them. And yes, they were compensated, and yes, it was for an expansion team, but they still feel like they weren't compensated enough. So they put an official complaint into the league that the teams that had their first round picks stolen from them were not compensated enough for their losses. And the league sided with them and said that we would be losing a first round pick in the process. Now, of course, me as the owner, also being part of those meetings, I tried like heck everything I could do to stop this madness, but I couldn't do it. The one concession I was able to get was that I was able to stop us from losing our first round pick this year. I was able to make it so our first round pick next year is what ends up being taken away. Now, officially what's going to happen is the 3 teams that had their picks taken from them, the Eagles, the Cardinals, and the Falcons, are going to have the right next year, if they so choose, and they obviously will, to trade their 4th round pick for a first round pick. That's right, a 4th round pick for a first round pick. The 3 teams would be randomly drawn as to which team gets this choice, and the team that won is the Eagles, because I'm an Eagles fan. and I want them to be good, so I'm giving them an extra first round pick. So officially the Eagles win their complaint in the spring league meetings, and we are without a first round pick next year. Now this was what I came up with to kind of implement the idea of a comments in one of the videos earlier on in the season, where we would lose our first round pick. I didn't want to lose it this year. I felt like that was a little bit too harsh, but I like the increased challenge of just losing a first round pick in this series. And so no first round pick next year. And if you saw this team play, we're nowhere close to good. We're not a draft away. We're not a free agency away. So we're likely going to lose a very high pick in the next year's draft. But that's the compensation it takes. We had a really good start with 4 really good players, and we lose a pick because of it. So shout out to the comment that gave me the idea to do this. It's not exactly what the comment said, but it sparked the idea. And so I love comments that bring ideas to this franchise. So with us losing that pick, the Giants are now no longer interested in negotiating for the number 1 overall pick. We don't have 3 first round picks to trade, and that was what they needed. They want 3 firsts and 2 seconds to move down out of number 1. That's what it would take for them not to take Kevin Blatchford. So now that Kevin Blatchford is officially off the table, what other options do we have at quarterback? Well, we have Trent Picard, but the guy I really want to talk about, because I can't go through everybody I like or else this episode will be 2 hours, is Tay Kelly here. 6'3", 213 pounds, 21 years old, out of Texas. Beautiful spiral, stands tall in the pocket and always aware of pressure. That's the same ideal sense of pressure. Does well to avoid sacks by throwing the ball away. Again, that can equal either conservative or ideal decision making. It's not aggressive. That's pretty much the only thing that trait will tell you. Even though it says throwing the ball away, that does not always lead to throw the ball away trait either. This player notes to traits conversion in Madden has been broken ever since they initiated this new scouting. So some things always translate over, others don't, and that's one that doesn't. So he not quite as strong of an arm as Blatchford, but still really, really good. And he also is an above average athlete. Good speed with great acceleration. Can't really push the ball downfield. He's not a perfect quarterback by any means, but he's great underneath. He can throw on the run. He can throw under pressure. He's got some medium accuracy, got some play action, got some break sack. There's just a lot to like about this player. He's not the caliber of thrower that Blatchford is, but he does make up with it with some speed. And above all else, you can get him in the 2nd round in this draft based off of all the projections right now. And so we're missing out on Blatchford. He's going number 1 overall, and we can't get there. But could we spend a 2nd round pick on a guy like Tay Kelly and still end up with maybe the quarterback of our future without maybe all the pressure? If he ends up not working out, you spent a 2nd on him and we can take another shot later. That's been the way that I've kind of dealt with the quarterback position, and sometimes it's worked. Most of the time it hasn't. It worked with Tyson Cohen in our London Black Knights franchise. A lot of the times when I've taken a mid-rounder on quarterback, it hasn't worked out, but I still like at least taking the shot. So Tay Kelly is probably the betting favorite to be. If we picked a quarterback in this class, it will likely be Tay Kelly. If we don't, we're starting Jacoby Brissett, which, like I said, I'm perfectly fine with doing for the season. Running back, we're not drafting one. I do like one fullback that we could take kind of in the 6th or 7th round, mostly just because he's an athlete. And with this 49ers playbook that we run, we get plays to the fullback. So I want a fullback that has the athleticism to maybe make something of those plays. Wide receiver, this is a position that we previewed before with these 2 players. Long story short, both of these guys very good at football. I think Eric Carnahan was a round 1 talent last time, which either means he's gone down in overall or he's tied with some people. Above average athlete, but not great. Just a lot of A's here. A release, A spec, A short, A run block, A awareness, A stiff arm. The major thing that gets you is the F injury, which is just so scary in Madden 24. So much more so than it has been in previous years. Lonnie Kilgore, here another guy, very similar. player. He's got maybe more B's than A's, but another guy with F injury. Two very talented receivers that you could take early on in this class, but they're gonna be major health risks. There's a guy here in the mid rounds though that I think is my favorite receiver in the class, and that is Javier Hendricks. We know he's a top 5 talent. You see a couple F's there, you're like, really? This is a top 5 talent? He's a very specialized player. Good speed, but elite agility and change of direction, great acceleration, and A catching, A short route, A juke move, B catching traffic. This is your prototypical slot run after the catch receiver. He's not the perfect all-around #1 receiver by any means, but we got that filled out with Gabe Davis. This guy could be a day 1 impact slot player that we could get in either the 2nd or maybe even the 3rd round, who has above average speed and is just great at making guys miss. I think we know he's a top 5 talent overall wise, and out of Clemson, I think Javier Hendricks just really, he's a specialty player, but it's a specialty that we don't have. Another really good route runner, which is something that we have with one player now in Gabe Davis, but would love another. And he's not a bad athlete at all either. So Javier Hendricks is my favorite option in the late rounds. There's another guy here, William Goldson, who I would be very interested in if he wasn't 23 years old. 23 years old is absolutely brutal in Madden. It's brutal, but he's 6'8". He's a 6'8" receiver at 230 pounds. He's not super fast, but he's got elite jumping, B short route, B spec catch, B deep route. He just can't run those intermediate routes. Send him deep, send him on slants. The dude's 6'8". A catching traffic, B catching, B release. He can block on the run and all that stuff as well. D to F injury with D stamina is tough though. I really wish he was 21 years old and his stamina and injury weren't bad, because I would absolutely take this player without question. With the injury and the stamina combined with the old age, it just make him like the tantalizing, right? There's the great. Sorry, I have to make my camera stop moving real quick. There's the great about him, and then there's stuff that you just wish wasn't quite the way that it was. So if we don't end up on Javier Hendricks, I imagine we'll take Goldson and we'll just figure out. There's also a guy with some good talent here, but I don't love him. Tight end class, there's a lot of really good guys. 2 guys that I'll talk about. The first guy, the only guy that I think is really worth taking in the early rounds, is Dalton McKinney here. 6'5", 240 pounds. Just either great or elite at literally everything, which is really good news. 4.55, 40, and A catching, A deep route, B run block. Love that to be A, but I'll take B. My one real complaint about him is that he can't run short routes, which is really what you have your tight end running a lot of. They can run the deep routes, medium route, we don't really know. Short route, max at C. I gotta imagine that's not F for a player that I'm looking at here, but I'm gonna guess it's actually the high end C there, would be my guess, but you still don't know. It could be C or D or even F. So the good thing is route running for tight end, I feel like you can upgrade semi-reliably and isn't like the most important. Like route running at tight end isn't as important as it is for wide receiver. That being said, there is a very good short route runner here in Chris Manokal, who I like. 21 years old, 6'6", 260, excellent age, excellent size, still a really good athlete, but not quite as good as McKinney. You can get him around later. A short route, A medium, A catching traffic, ADC catching. Don't know his run block, wish I did, but it's maxed out at B, so not going to be an incredible run blocker, but at least going to be good, and absolutely going to be a great route runner. And again, route running, very big priority for me, but more so at the tight end, I'm looking for an athlete who can block. And Chris Monaco, absolutely still an athlete who can block. He's just a better route runner. But McKinney is the athlete who can block. You take the tight end early. I mean, our head coach, Louis Smart, is a former tight end. So if there's a guy who's going to be willing to take a high pick on a tight end, it's going to be Coach Smart. Now, offensive line. This is a this is a class that I'm very excited to talk about. Unfortunately, I don't think there's as much value late as I usually like to find, but the top rounds, there are quite a few good options. Starting here with Charlie Kyle, who, if I'm being straight up honest with you, is the best tackle that I've ever seen. Great strength, great speed, elite acceleration. And then look at this player card. What is going on? Nothing below a B for an offensive lineman. I've never seen that. I've never seen anybody who didn't have at least one C, and most of them have at least one D. Nothing below a B. The most technically sound tackle maybe to come out in the draft since a guy like Joe Thomas, man. Definitely a tackle that's excellent. You have one knock on him. He doesn't have elite size for tackle. 6'4", 310. It's honestly kind of below average, at least with the 6'4". So you don't love that, but he's young. He's extremely athletic, and he's extremely good at football. You'll take a little bit of knock on the sides when he's got those other three things all at an elite level. And he's one of the... So we have the number 2 pick, like I said. There's 3 players that I think are worth that pick. Kevin Blatchford, not going to be there. So who are the other 2? Charlie Kyle is one. He is on the short list. He is going to be one of 3 players that will be, but again, more likely 2 players that will be taken with our first pick in this series. Talked about it all the way back in episode 1. I believe in investing early on the offensive line, and Charlie Kyle is about as good as an investment as you can get at that spot. So it's going to be very hard to pass on him. But the guy that we'll talk about later is also going to be very, very hard to pass on. There's 2 just absolutely elite prospects. Going along the offensive line, the other guy that I think is absolutely worth the top pick here is Jonathan Terrell. Now, he's 22 years old. You love 21 offensive line, but 22 is not terrible. Elite strength, great speed, good acceleration. And he's got, again, this is more of what you're used to seeing. I mean, he doesn't look great when you compare him right next to Charlie Kyle, but this is a normal offensive lineman's draft card. Trust me. A impact, A lead. Those are 2 things that are harder to develop, so you like them starting high. B pass block, B finesse. A to B run block, A finesse. And then the power's not terrible. Pass block power being D is the one thing that makes you slightly not love him, as well as 22 over 21. But absolutely a guy that would be my favorite lineman in a lot of classes, just not one that has Charlie Kyle in it. So very good player here. The only other guy, despite the fact that I have a ton of guys, on my board that I think is truly worth, a first round pick, is John Tafoya, and he's not insane. He only has solid strength and acceleration, so that's not great, but he's got great speed, and he's just an excellent pass blocker. A pass block finesse, A pass block power. Combine that with, it doesn't look like he's going to be a terrible run blocker. Run block finesse might be really bad, but a guy who's an above average athlete and is an excellent pass blocker and is 22 years old, worthy of a first round pick in my eyes. So there you have the offensive kind of preview of the class. Don't love a lot of the day 3 on the offense, I'll say that. So most of the offense is going to be rounds 1 through 3 that you really target here. Now let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball, and we'll talk about a couple of guys that I like. Honestly, don't think either of these guys, I like them. We'll talk about them when they get drafted, but I just don't think they're quite for me. Will McCray, here's the first day 3 guy on our board here. I just think excellent size, 6'6", 277. That has inside-out versatility. I like that, with B power moves and above average athleticism. Does have C to F injury, but we're talking about a day 3 guy. None of these guys are going to be perfect, right? So we could say that his injury proneness is what had him fall, because honestly, that card looks like more than a day 3 player right there. Right end here, we have Marquise Crawford. Now, here's the other guy that I think is absolutely worth the number 2 pick. 6'5", 275 pounds, 21 years old, all elite. Athletically, good strength, great speed, elite acceleration. The other stuff's elite too. It's not as important, but it's elite anyway. Just an insane athlete with insane size, A power moves, A play rec, A awareness, A tackle, good stamina and injury. Can even finesse him a bit. More of an average run stopper, but when he's that elite of a pass rusher, you're going to take average run stopping all day long. Now, just because he's my favorite edge doesn't mean he's the only edge. The actual guy who's the consensus #2 player in the entire draft and the consensus #1 on defense is Walter Douglas. You're looking at a very, very similar athletic card here, and even very similar here on the ratings as well. The one thing that has Crawford over Douglas for me is C to F injury. Don't know if that's F. He could be somebody that you look at using your last focus player period, which I will, just to see right where that is, because if that's C injury, that might actually push him over Crawford. These guys are both absolutely insane, especially if we find out that his finesse moves is also A. If it's B like Crawford's, then they'll pretty much be tied on my board. But if he has A power and finesse, then yeah, he goes up to #1 on the edge rankings for sure. And one thing I will note, in case you didn't see previous episodes, is based on the research that I did when Madden first came out, defensive ends were kind of weak, so I made their draft class strength strong. This class, all by its lonesome, is good enough that I will be reversing that decision. We're going back to normal because this class is insane. You're looking at an interior guy, Corey Holt, somebody that you might be able to get top of the second round, which of course we have a spot there. Elite strength with solid speed and good acceleration. A block shed, B power move. Really good player. My one complaint is I've seen this build be very good, but also normal dev so many times. So I feel like this build just has high normal dev chance, but really good player. So still on the board. I think could be a good pick even if he is normal dev, honestly. There was one guy that I forgot to put on my board, but I was looking at that I need to add for sure. What end position does he play? Left end, it looks like. Alonzo Arnett. The only reason he didn't make my board is just the poor top speed, but with great strength and great acceleration. C to F injury as well. I still think he needs to be on the board. Just because, actually no, I'm fine keeping him off. We just don't know enough, and I don't know if I want to. He had a news story about him, which is why I wanted to put him on the board. But I think the injury concerns and the fact that we know so little about him, I don't know if I want to waste use one of my 3 spots on him. So we'll keep him off. So that's pretty much it for defensive line. We've got a couple of, potential day 3 guys or round 3 guys here, or just finesse rushers. There's always a guy or two in pretty much every Madden class. There's really quick, have good finesse moves. And if we hadn't gotten that finesse rusher in the free agency, absolutely would have been targeting these guys. Still might, all the same. One of my favorite round 3 players, or maybe if we're lucky, top of round 4 players, is Matt Maynard here. Now, I have been burned by liking outside linebackers as off-ball linebackers in Madden classes before. And I like this player because he is a run stopper archetype with A-zone coverage. A-zone coverage is harder to trust. I'm really liking this build. Elite speed and acceleration with good strength, even being compared to edge rushers at outside linebacker. A play rec, A catching, A hit power, A pursuit, A tackle, B awareness. This guy's the complete package. He really is. So, thinking about him here at round 3, if we can get him for sure. That we don't super need him because now we have Mack Wilson and Devin Bush. That's a solid tandem. That being said, those two are certainly not going to keep me from having a guy like Matt Maynard on the board. He's a little bit less required now that we got Devin Bush, which is again was the point of free agency, to make sure we didn't absolutely need to come away with anybody in this class. I do like a day 3 middle linebacker here in Philip Mason. Gonna go a little bit later just in case we can't get Maynard. Elite speed. He is faster for sure. Also has good strength. good coverage. So just C to F injury, only C tackle, stuff like that makes you a little bit less confident in him. So I think I'd absolutely have Maynard over Mason on my linebacker board. Corner. There's only one, early corner that I think is going to be worth it for us, and that's Emmett Graham. Really good athlete, can jump, got the speed, got the change of direction, can cover both man and zone, can catch. D injury, not great, but it's not F. The difference between D and F in my mind in Madden 24 is so much bigger than it has been in years past. D, way better than F. So if we want to take a corner early, which is certainly an option, even with Bryce Hall can be our slot, and then we can have Gonzalez, Graham, and Bryce Hall. So corner's still absolutely on my board. Another guy I really want to like, but he's just 23 years old here in Sydney Ferguson. It's hard for me to like 23-year-olds, especially 23-year-olds who aren't elite athletes. But being able to get B-man and zone coverage in round 3 is pretty good. But he's 23, so it's going to be a hard sell. Damier Hale here is a 6'2", 210-pound corner with A-man and A-press. Decent athlete, not a great athlete, but just a day one skill set. We saw this archetype many times in our London Black Knight series, and we tried to turn them into safeties. In this case, we could actually draft this press man corner to play corner. Could be really useful. Excuse me. Really needed to cough there for a minute. And then Roy Wilson's another day 3 option there. Only one early round safety. Don't really love the safety class, but probably not really going to take him now that we got both Blackman and Delpit. But Percy Ward was absolutely on my short list prior to that. Just really good athletes, even with the F stamina and good zone coverage, but not really going to take him now that we have filled both starting safety spots. So that is it for the draft. Now let's go ahead and take a look here at mock draft 3. This is, of course, the last snapshot that we are allowed to look at. Can't look at 4 or 5 here before the draft. Kevin Blatchford win at number 1 overall. Imagine he still does. They had Pickard going at 2. Not really going to happen if we're being honest. Douglas is the number 2 consensus. He's going to the Bears at 3. Charlie Kyle, one of the guys we're absolutely interested in at 2, goes at 5. And Marquise Crawford, the other guy we're absolutely interested in at 2, goes at 9. So depending on what the extra scouting does for Douglas, it's really Douglas, Kyle, and Crawford that we're interested in. Now, if we're interested in either Crawford or Kyle, you would think here that a trade down is possible, and it certainly is in the card for us. Not really for Walter Douglas, if that's who we ended up wanting to take. Don't want to trade down too far, though, especially now that we're missing next year's first. I think a trade down is very much so in the cards. And to think we were considering trading all of those assets to move up prior to getting our first round pick taken away from us. Other guys that we really like, Dalton McKinney is projected to go at 16. He was projected to, well, really to the end of the round before. So, in mock draft 2. I don't know if that's going to hold through free agency. That's the one thing about mock draft 3. We have no idea how accurate this is, because a lot of these teams could have filled these holes in free agency or gotten new holes because they had to release somebody or something. Emmett Graham going at 18. Jonathan Terrell, really like him. He's going at 21 here. Tafoya, another lineman that we like. Corey Holt. Those are some of the guys that, just to give you an idea of where some of these guys might be going off the board. I have a game plan for the draft. I'm excited to get into it, and I think it's about that time. So let's hop into the NFL draft. Actually, before we get into that draft, I just wanted to show that we did get Kevin Givens, and I also just want to get a final snapshot of where everyone went in free agency. So we will simulate through this week, and we'll get to the free agency recap. Just see what went down around the league think that's important to not only keep up with your own team, but to see what's happening around the league. Of course, we can't look at that. Almost accidentally clicked on it. Tyron Smith, the biggest name in free agency, goes to the Titans. Of course, we signed Davis. DJ Reader goes to the Lions. Townsend remains unsigned. Gerald Everett here to the Commanders. Here's to the Raiders. Couple of vets going to Vegas here. Somebody we were interested in here, Williams, going to the Commanders as well. So the Titans, the Commanders, and the Raiders and our team seem to kind of be the big four. The Lions made a couple signings here. That's kind of it for the guys over 80 overall. Not a terribly big class. I think we got two of the best there were out there. Certainly the two best that were actually available to our team. So both 25 years old as well, which is a big reason why I wanted to get them. Might actually still be good by the time our team could be good. So I think free agency was a big win for us here in year one. Didn't think we were going to get two kind of building block guys that were 25 years old. That was not my plan, but glad it worked out for us. And it is now time to officially welcome you into the 2024 NFL Draft. Before the draft gets kicked off, I just want to show you what we did with our 3 focus scouts. We ended up getting extra knowledge on Walter Douglas, Marquise Crawford, and Charlie Kyle. I wanted to see if maybe, if I was wrong about one of them, it could have pushed me one way or the other here. And also to know more about Walter Douglas's injury and finesse moves. And we got D to F, so didn't get that, unfortunately. But we know it's not C. We know it's pretty bad, and we know finesse moves is A. So I think we learned enough to keep Marquise Crawford over Walter Douglas here, as well as we learned that there's really not much difference between Kyle and Crawford. I'm honestly surprised, I will say, that Charlie Kyle is not top 5. I look at this prospect card and I think 79 or 80 overall, which either means this is the most sick draft class ever and he is 79 or 80, or he's just a little bit worse than I thought, probably like 76, 77. But if he's more that overall, whether or not he's superstar development starts to come into question. If he was 79 or 80, he's superstar, no doubt, or even 80 plus, The fact that he's not a top 5 talent makes me think he might actually be just a star dev tackle. But even if you do get star dev, so very interesting what we do at 2 here. I was hoping getting these 2 scouted would help me decide. It didn't. I found out they're the exact same talent range, which means they're probably within an overall or a 2 of each other. So that doesn't help me at all. So let's get this draft underway, starting with the New York Giants, projected to take number 1 quarterback Kevin Blatchford. What is... Okay. We're already seeing the fruits of not looking at mock draft 4 or 5. What happened? I checked, they didn't sign Baker Mayfield. What did they do? What? What? They take Stephen Bowles, really good edge. There are 4 edge prospects at the top of this class that are all really, really good. The reason I didn't preview Stephen Bowles is because he's 23 years old, still very good. Talent-wise, he's on the level of Crawford and the other guy that I can't remember his name right now. Morgan, I think. My whole game plan's chalked, by the way, at this point, because this whole thing said Kevin Blatchford was gone. But now, all right. Now you're starting to think, is Kevin Blatchford just normal development? Because why would the Giants pass on him? Did they trade for somebody? They didn't sign anybody. They traded for Desmond Ridder. But is he that good to say no to Kevin Blatchford? I think he's still star development, so he probably has quarterback of the future tag? Future starter tag or whatever? Yeah, that was it. They didn't sign big time quarterback. They traded. Also, another thing while we're here. Just want to show you draft class edit. This is Madden generated draft class. I have no knowledge of what this draft class is. I did not edit it at all. Just while we were there. So I always forget to show that, even though I like to. But you got to think, if Blatchford is as good as I think he is, even Desmond Ridder wouldn't make you pass him up. Douglas. Well, I'll tell you what my plan was before the Giants threw a massive wrench in it. My plan, maybe this could still be my plan, because if the Giants passed on Blatchford for Ridder, maybe the Bears would pass on him because they have Justin Fields. My plan was to try to trade with the Chicago Bears here, because they like Douglas. He's the number 2 player on the board. They might be willing to secure him. We could say, hey, we like him too. He's number 2 consensus for a reason. I just wanted to see. I don't think this would go through. I just wanted to see if it was close. If it wasn't close, then we'd take it, our pick at 2. Because we don't have a first round pick next year, getting a second one this year would be real awesome. That's actually closer than I thought it was. But if we do this and the Bears take Blatchford and he's excellent, if we did whatever we needed to fill the last part of that gap, I mean, and he's awesome, then you feel terrible. You miss on a franchise quarterback. But if he was awesome, wouldn't the Giants have taken him? Oh, I'm sorry, this is taking forever, but this is a massive curveball. That's why I love these home rules, man. I was not prepared for this at all. I thought, I would have loved to take Blatchford, but it's just not in the cards for us. Okay. I wish this was a live stream so I could ask chat. Maybe I got to start live streaming off seasons, so that when wacky shiz like this happens, I have more than one mind to help me out. That's an idea. We could start live streaming off season starting next year, maybe. If you're down, let me know. Man. But I think maybe you still take this trade with the Bears. Dude, if he ends up being really good and the Bears take him, though, you're pissed. Absolutely pissed. What about the Phillies 4? Nah, it's going to take more than that. What about a 3, but it's 2 years from now? We're already down picks next year. I don't know if I want to be down even more. Phillies 4 and our third. Phillies 4 next year and our third 2 years from now. Our 5, so a 3, a 4, and a 5 for... Okay. So the Bears really wanted Walter Douglas. He's the second overall consensus player in this class. They were willing to give up their pick in the 20s for him. We just had to give some extra fillage in the mid rounds. 5th round this year. 4th round from Philly next year. I think that's from Philly. I hope it's from Philly. And the 3rd rounder 2 years from now. Do they take Blatchford? Oh boy. They do take Walter Douglas still, so Blatchford's still on the board. Well, I thought 3 players were worth, number 1 overall pick type players in this class. And they're all still sitting here at number 3. The decision has not been made for me. I got to make it myself. I think I don't want to use it. We only got 2 trades. I don't want to use them both right now. So I think we got to make a trade. Sorry, a pick. If you don't take Blatchford and he's good, you're kicking yourself. I'm going to be honest. I would take Charlie Kyle over Crawford. Even though Crawford is really good, I've seen that before. I've never seen this. We have an opportunity to take franchise quarterback. I have never taken quarterback at the start of a series before. I've never done it. This could be the first time. I think Kevin Blatchford is worthy of it. So with the number 3 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Memphis Thunderbirds will select Kevin Blatchford, quarterback out of Oklahoma, and he is not normal dead. 96 throw power, 74 speed, not going to be a game changer there, 81 acceleration. We're not getting him for these athletic stats. This isn't what impresses you about Kevin Blatchford. It's going to be the stuff that we find out about him after the draft. And the fact that he has 96 throw power on top of that's pretty nice. I'm like what I'm seeing already from Kevin Blatchford. And I'm very happy we avoided normal dev here. Okay. All right. Needed to take care of something real quick, but we are back. The Rams have taken Darren Hatcher, corner out of Washington. Pretty good player. I think, if I remember right, very good zone corner. Just wasn't in the cards for us. I thought there were better values. Pick number 5 comes in, and it's David Owens out of Florida. Another tackle out of Florida, but it's not Charlie Kyle. David Owens is a fine football player. You could tell me he's worthy of a first-round pick, and I wouldn't argue with you. I think he's maybe more of a second, but over Charlie Kyle? What is going on in this draft? Dude, we're 5 picks in, and I'm already more just don't know what's going on. Just my head's all over the place. My game plan's already up the wazoo. What happened to Charlie Kyle? Caleb Harris. Marquise Crawford goes at 7, and there's still no Charlie Kyle. The Saints are very bad at left tackle, so I imagine they take him here. Gotta imagine, right? But hold on with me here. My game plan's already out the window. We are flying by the seat of our pants here. What about a little bit of a switch up here? I'm just trying to think through if this is going to be enough. We try to do this. Our next pick, we'd go from picking 8 to picking 66th. I don't even know if the Saints would do this. You'd have to guess no. 25 and a high 2. Pretty much kind of, you can equate it to 2 back end firsts. This isn't enough, right? Oh, they need to save cap space, though. Look at that. They might need to do this. Any move that saves them cap space? I didn't think that was going to go through. I thought it was... I just wanted to see how close it was going to be. And we've already made our 2 trades. We're not... Oh, man. These house rules are making things fun. I don't know what's going on in the draft, and I already can't trade anymore until round 5. I wanted to see if it was close, like if a 5th would send it over the top or something. But the Saints are -7 in the hole. They probably need to do this to save some money. Are 25 and 34 combined worth less than 8? That might be. And you get 2 top 34 picks. I mean, it's not an awful trade for the Saints. I just didn't think it was enough. Who are we missing out here on now? I mean, we're now missing out on the opportunity for guys a little bit down the board here. Dalton McKinney no longer going to be even remotely possible. Emmett Graham, Jonathan Terrell, Tafoya. But these other offensive linemen now, I mean, we're getting the better ones, so it's not opportunity cost there. But no Corey Holt, Lonnie Kilgore. These other last 2 guys we weren't going to draft anyway. So we're really getting out of the running or getting like Emmett Graham and Dalton McKinney. 2 really good players. Because theoretically, what was in my mind with 25 and 34 was probably if Jonathan Terrell ended up sliding, he was at pick 21 in the mock draft 3. He ended up sliding back to 25. We were taking him or probably Tafoya. We were taking an offensive lineman at 25. And so basically the opportunity cost is we're using that 34th pick to upgrade from Tafoya slash Terrell, probably Tafoya, up to Charlie Kyle. So we're sacrificing probably a McKinney or a Graham, and I think even they were going in mock draft 3, right? If I'm not mistaken. So I think this trade might actually work out for us in the end. Unfortunately, what it did though, the biggest opportunity cost is we can no longer trade until round 5. But with that being said, we can also take Charlie Kyle, the best offensive lineman I've ever seen. Now, that's not going to reflect overall wise because somehow he's not a top 5 talent. I just don't know how. This is not a top 5 talent. These grades combined with this athleticism, how is that not top 5? Either way, he's going to be a sick player. He is hidden dev. You always got to, that's always a worry in the back of your mind with offensive linemen. Did I just trade 2 top 35 picks for a normal dev offensive lineman? We did not. 89 strength, good, not elite. The athleticism, really, really good. Not elite athleticism, like top tier. Yeah, I've seen better athletes than this, but I have not seen better blockers than this. And the athleticism is like not S tier, but it's A tier still. It's really, really good. And so we got our franchise quarterback, or the person that we're counting on being our franchise quarterback, and the guy that's going to be protecting him. We got both of our tackles already set, and we're 1 season in the franchise. That is really, really big, I think, especially in CPU versus CPU. You need good offensive line. And I've said it since episode 1, you invest early in the offensive line, and that's exactly what we're doing here. Trent Picard goes here to the Raiders. Jonathan Terrell does go where he went in mock draft 3. This is one of the guys that we were to stick and pick at 25 and 34. Jonathan Terrell would not have been on the board, so we're talking probably Tafoya at 25. And then Graham would not have been there at 34. And Tafoya goes here. So if we wanted to, the Tafoya and Graham, which is probably my preferred duo, wasn't going to be available at 25 and 34. However, McKinney, I think, has not been picked unless I missed him, right? Yeah, so We sacrificed Dalton McKinney for the upgrade from Tafoya to Charlie Kyle, which is a pretty big upgrade. We went from like average athlete who can only pass protect to really good athlete, 1 year younger, and can do everything. Tay Kelly goes to the Eagles. So part of my theoretical game plan was to trade with the Raiders, trade up 5 spots, but then swap pick 34 back to their pick and pick Tay Kelly at quarterback. Obviously, that wasn't in the cards once we picked Blatchford, but I was basically hoping to come away with Charlie Kyle, Jonathan Terrell, Tay Kelly with our first 3 picks, and then hopefully get the guy that I still want. Chris Menacall was my plan B. Really good route running tight end who's a good athlete. Giants, don't screw me over here. They did not screw us over. I know who I'm picking here at round 3, pick 2 in this draft. There's only one guy on my mind, and it is Javier Hendricks, who is a borderline top 5 talent. When we looked just 2 weeks ago in game, he was top 5. I doubt his rating went down, which probably means he's just tied for whoever is 5th highest overall in the class. But right now, it just looks like a solid round 1 talent. What he is he is a slot wide receiver. You're seeing a lot of A's and a lot of F's. You know, there's not a lot of the B to C's in this guy's prospect profile card. Because I gotta tell my camera to be still. He's very specialized as a slot receiver, but he's very, very, very good at it. He elite change of direction and agility, good speed and great strength, acceleration, excuse me, A catching, A juke move, A short route, B catching traffic. All things that you need as kind of that run after the catch slot wide receiver. And he's going to be our pick at round 3, pick 2 in the draft. He is normal development. So our hidden dev run for the series is just 2. We got our 2 top 10 picks hidden. Will not be so lucky here in round 3. But you're talking about a guy who's top 5 overall, tied for it, unless his overall did go down by 1 or 2. But still a top 20 talent at least. You're top of the 3rd, guaranteed. I don't even care if it's normal dev. He has a day 1 skill set as a slot receiver. He's going to help out our quarterback. This whole draft, as soon as we got Blatchford, became about helping the quarterback. Maynard goes. This is the price you pay for getting your 2 trades out of the way in the top 10. I wanted to have a pick here kind of in the middle of the 3rd to get Matt Maynard, my favorite linebacker in the class, pretty easily. Ends up going to the Commanders. He's around 3 to 4 talent, so this is kind of the very high end of his range. Those round 3 to 4 guys will start coming off in the middle of the 3rd and will last until day 3. I was hoping we could get lucky with Maynard, and that would have been the perfect draft. You know, not according to my game plan, but even better because I didn't think we had a shot at Blatchford. I think it's going to be Demir Hale here, but I just want to see other guys on our board. A couple of guys ahead of day 3 still on our board here. Got a guaranteed round 1 to 2 talent, but it's a slot receiver. It's basically just discount Javier Hendricks. Is Ian Slack. We make up for missing out on Dalton McKinney here with Ian Slack. 22 years old, 6'5", 251. Too slow. Especially, I mean, his run blocking is A to C. If it was guaranteed A, it'd maybe be a little bit more enticing, but still 4.8. It's not fast enough. I could have taken him off my board, honestly. He's probably had good to great speed, you know? So I kept him on the board for his potential of great speed. But yeah, he's just a blocker. So this is probably where we're going our first defensive player in the draft, all the way in round 4. We spent days 1 and 2 taking our quarterback and trying to make sure we made his success more of a sure thing. But now we're going defense. Hale, Mason, McRae. All options here. We did sign Givens in free agency. Oh, and he's more of kind of like an edge interior hybrid. He's not a true interior guy. I'd say probably not McRae. If he's still available with our next pick, which is in top round 6, he'll be on the table for sure. Here's more of the true interior guy. Ooh, oh, he's 24. But he's got A to B block shed and B power moves. He's 24 though. Then you got Demir Hale. 21 years old. Oh, I thought he was 22. 21's even better. Just a solid athlete. Not anything special there. Cannot recognize plays. Cannot catch. But he can play man, press, man coverage. Can't even play much zone. Specialized player, but we're in day 3. That's what you're talking about. So I think it's just because we got Devin Bush. I don't know if we really need Philip Mason this year. Especially because I think both these guys are pretty good. Ezekiel Williams or Demir Hale. I think we go Hale here. Demir Hale, welcome to the Memphis Thunderbirds. We got another normal dev. That's fine. 90 speed, not great. 87 acceleration. 82 agilities, not great either. 91 change of direction is good though. 89 jumping, you'll take for sure. Agility and change of direction are a little low, but ability and acceleration. Change of direction is just fine. We're now just gonna go straight here. Don't really care about what's happening. We'll see who makes it to round 6. There's only like 3 players that I really like left in the draft. I'm not gonna simulate 2 rounds to get to it. That end, if that 24-year-old end was still here, that would have been the pick. I want to see what he is. 24 is rough though. 24 is so bad. Could have been worth it, you know, this late in the draft for sure. I think here we haven't taken a tight end, and our tight end situation is pretty terrible. Williamson's pretty small, but he is athletic. Ran the fastest 40 of all the tight ends with B run block. An athlete who can block. I was said it all the way in the beginning of this episode. That's something that I wanted the tight end, and he can do it. 86 speed, 86 acceleration. That's perfectly fine at tight end. Above average with B run block. I'll take that. The 6th round, don't care about the development. You're not expecting hidden development. Development's a bonus. You expect hidden development in the first few rounds. After that, it's just a bonus. Here, I think we might try to recoup some value. You know, we're out of the 4th round. We can start to trade again. We can get a 5th next year from Atlanta. Or we can get a 6th for each of the next 2 years. I think you go 5th here from Atlanta for next year. Who did Atlanta want? Was it one of the few guys left on our board? No, it was not. We got 1 pick left in this class, and I know who I want it to be. He's still available. I think we're taking that fullback here. And he is. Safety could be interesting. We just don't know very much about him. And Roy Wilson, he's fine. But I think Carlos Roman, 21-year-old fullback with elite speed and acceleration to kind of run some of those use check plays that are in this 49ers playbook. And there you have it. Our first draft is complete. Was a wild top 10 that had me just not prepared at all. I was not prepared at all. And that was a fun feeling. It's a feeling I just have not had in Madden in a really long time. I feel like I've been very prepared for each of the drafts because I could make whatever trade I wanted to around the board, and I could see mock draft 5. So I had a really good idea what the CPU wanted to do. And it was just wild. I don't know why the Jets took that other tackle before Charlie Kyle, though. We're going to take a look at him, and we're going to see just how stupid of a decision that was. watch him be a superstar, Devin, and then I'm the one eating crow. But I think as off script and off game plan as it was a really fun draft. I'm going to take a look at these guys' ratings, edit some things around. I'll see you once I'm done with that. And by edit them, I obviously didn't mean edit their ratings or anything. That's super cheesy. Just their faces and their gear. But I have gone through and done that for our draft picks. Let's take a look at this class. And we have an 82 overall quarterback in Kevin Blatchford, drafted at number 3 overall. Why the Giants and the Bears passed up on the opportunity to draft this guy? If we had passed up and the Bears had taken him at 2, that would be a pretty bad luck. So the Bears bailed us out. The Giants just messed up. 96 throw power, a base of 85 deep accuracy, 84 medium, 82 short. Now, I will say about this draft card is despite the 82 overall, there's nothing here that screams generational to me. There's not like one sick rating, like, I don't know, under pressure isn't insane, play action, whatever it is there's no just one number that makes you think, ah, yes, generational. So might be star dev, who knows? But at 82 overall, you still got to say there's definitely a chance we got ourselves a generational quarterback prospect with the number 1 pick of this series. First time I'd ever taken quarterback in the first pick of a series. And looks like it was a good decision this time around. Especially considering we were able to trade back and still get him. Charlie Kyle ends up being a 77 overall. I honestly thought this is like a 79, 80 overall tackle from what we saw. So 77, a little bit lower. But I mean, look at this. Does Madden ever generate tackles? I have green everything. His run block power technically would be 75 and still in the yellow if we didn't have the +1, but whatever. This guy's insane. He has no weaknesses. 97 injury, 98 stamina on top of it. He's not going to get tired. He's not going to get injured. Just an absolutely awesome tackle prospect, and exactly the kind of guy you want to pair with a franchise quarterback. After that, we've got 78 overall Javier Hendricks and 90 short route running, ladies and gentlemen. 90 short route running to start off his career. He's getting a +2. 88 juke move, 86 spin move. Stamina injuries are a little bit rough. Don't look at that. But I mean, just an awesome looking slot receiver for us from year 1. Receiving room looking a lot different than it was in year 1. Demir Hill, 71 overall, 80 man coverage, 78 press. Can't catch, can't play much zone right now. Can't recognize what play is coming at him. Needs to get better in those areas for sure. But a 6'2" with 90 speed, that's enough. It's not great, but it's likely enough. And can just come in and play man coverage right away. He's going to have a shot to be corner 2 here in season 1. For sure. Not going to just hand it to him. He's going to have to earn it in preseason, but he's certainly going to have a chance to do so. Kevin Williamson, 67 overall. Honestly, a little bit lower than I thought. I thought he was going to be low 70s as well. 86 speed, 86 acceleration, 82 catching, 63 run block. It's a start. Another guy with insanely good injury and stamina. And I think a good player for a 6-round tight end. Just can't run routes. Then finishing off with Carlos Rowan, 72 overall, 80 lead block, 84 speed, 86 acceleration. Got some trucking and stiff arm to him as well. Doesn't have much stamina, but he's not going to be a full-time guy, so I don't think it's going to matter too much. So I really like this draft class, especially this top 3, the quarterback, the pass protector, the playmaker. That trio right there is going to be crucial to the future of this franchise right here. And we got so much better offensively. Defensively, it's all on Demir Hill to, carry this class. But offensively, we had a really good class. 3 guys at 77 overall plus. 2 of them, I think, have a really good chance at superstar or plus. It's really good. Let's take a look at the rest of the draft now, though. Stephen Bowles. This is the guy that the Giants took instead of taking quarterback. And I did look, and Ritter does have the quarterback of the future tag and stuff, but he's like a low to mid 70s overall. It's not good enough to not take Blatchford. Let's look at Knowles. Star dev, yeah. I mean, who knows? Blatchford could be star dev too. Walter Douglas, 86 strength, 84 speed, 89 acceleration, 80 power moves, 76 finesse, 78 injury. So it was regular F injury, not F- injury. Also star development. Darren Hatcher, zone heavy corner. Just normal dev, but 82 zone coverage off rip. I think you'll even take normal dev with 82 zone coverage off rip if you're a zone heavy scheme. David Owens, the lone offensive lineman taken before Charlie Kyle. They went the same position. This is just like the Knicks taking Lee Lewis, which just happened in our 2K franchise. This guy better be superstar dev. He's actually pretty good. I'm gonna be honest, he's pretty good. He's star dev. He's 4 overall lower than Charlie Kyle. Caleb Harris, 21 years old, hidden dev edge rusher with good strength, speed, and acceleration. He's the finesse rusher of the group. Although to be fair, Douglas had pretty similar finesse moves. He just had better power moves. Superstar dev, okay. Vikings getting themselves some superstar abilities. Now Marquise Crawford. Talking about the 4th edge off the board, my personal favorite. Slightly lower top speed, but I think the highest acceleration out of all of them. Strength is right where all the others are. 78 power, 74 finesse. But the injury and stamina just in a much better spot than those guys. 21 years old as well. And superstar dev. Proud of myself for having him as edge 1. Probably Kyle, we know. Leroy Abbott ends up being 80 overall. Talked about him as maybe being a generational guy. I don't know. 80's not really generational. Running back. He is dang good. He is dang good. That's a really good running back, man. That's a fun pick for Tampa Bay. Just stars, not a generational running back, just a really good one. Doing a better number than 30. Abraham, 75 overall, solid. Picked by the Texans. Carter McCoy, another guy I like. I think he's more of a guard than a tackle, but really good athlete. Really good athlete. And a really good run blocker, just not much of a pass blocker or a power blocker. Really a weird skill set here. I want to see if he has superstar dev. Still think I play him at guard, despite the fact that he struggles a bit with power. Evan Williamson ends up being 77 overall. Yeah, this end class was just too good. It's got to go back down to normal strength. Even in my testing, I didn't see an end class this strong. Middleton, 76. I didn't like these DTs, but this guy's pretty good. Good player there for Arizona. Another guy I want to look at. Let's look at Picard. 74 overall. And normal dev. The deep and the short is there. The medium needs work. And he's faster. Let's see his traits. I haven't even looked at our guy's traits. Ideal decision maker, average sense of pressure. That's pretty good. Obviously, you want ideal the most, but that's pretty good. That's probably second place. Although I'd probably take ideal sense of pressure and aggressive decision maker over that. So that his traits would be third place. We got ideal. Also, was he changing his look? I didn't even look at his traits. And they're perfect. Already the 13th best quarterback in the league. Hasn't even taken a snap yet, man. This turnaround might be pretty quick here. Jonathan Terrell's at 77. He's the same overall as Charlie Kyle, huh? Ah, his run block finesse is insane. That's why. We knew it was A. Didn't know it was A+. Your stamina is not bad either. This is definitely my second favorite lineman that I've seen, so I think I got that right. How? What? I mean, there's no X Factor abilities for linemen, so he's basically just a superstar. You saw, I did not edit this class. This is, Madden made this guy an X Factor. What the heck? Does that mean he started with superstar and then some like in-game scenario, in-season scenario happened that raised his... Congrats on the Bengals. They have the only superstar X Factor lineman in the league. Arnhan I wanted to see. Ends up being 75 overall. Really liked what I saw though. A little slower than I thought. Thought he was going to be low 90s. But good catching, good route running, except for deep. Good release. Step arm's at 80. This is why you can't take F injury players. 39 injury? The dude's not going to play. I don't care if he's X Factor. He's not even X Factor. Man, I love looking through draft passes. Let's look at Emmett Graham. I was high on him. Got the mutton chops going. 83 catching. Your stamina, all right. Good athleticism. Can cover both man and zone. This is a good player. 83 catching. It's hard to have. That's a good corner. John Tafoya. So, John Tafoya is only 2 overall less than Charlie Kyle. Not quite the athlete. Speed and acceleration wise, sure. Stamina is a lot lower. Strength is quite a bit lower. Pass blocking is pretty similar, but just not nearly the run blocker that Kyle is. He's a year older. If he's superstar dev, though, I think you can call the trade up an LE star. And Charlie Kyle might be a star too. We don't know. We don't look at our own players. The other guy we would have gotten 78 overall running back. Let's take a look at him. Normal dev, 23 years old. Even 78 is kind of an L at that point. Running back. Percy Ward I liked before we signed 2 starting caliber safeties. Oh yeah. Low stamina, but that's a good pick even with normal dev. For the same reason the Javier Hendricks is a good pick. Dalton McKinney. 74 overall. Faster than our guy. Better catching. Slightly better run blocking. I don't know how this guy's 7 overall better than Williamson. Not that I think he's rated too highly. I think Williamson's rated too lowly. Star dev. If Charlie Kyle's a superstar dev, then the trade up's still easily a dub. Even if he starts, I still would think it's a dub. Terribly slow corner here, but actually 74 overall. What about this man makes him 74 overall? His coverage is terrible, and his speed is too. Can't catch. He can recognize plays really well, and he's a 74 overall. Cool. He's going to recognize which play he's getting absolutely toasted with. Lonnie Kilgore. Dude, this dude is rocked up. My goodness. Look at those arms. Good receiver. Absolutely juicing those arms. No doubt about it. Gonna get suspended for PEDs. I think that's all we care about here in this round, probably. Round 3. I think the last guy I really want to look at, the one guy we missed out on, Matt Maynard, ends up being 75 overall with hidden dev. Speed is actually 87, which is good, not great. His zone coverage is only 63 with A. That's why it's hard to draft outside linebacker coverage. Even still, though, had we drafted him, it wouldn't have been a burn, even though his coverage is lower than I expected. 75 hidden in the 3rd round. Absolute money. Kelly would have been a fun pick. I actually want to take a look at him because he was going to be our quarterback. This was my plan. Take Kelly, QB1. He has conservative decision maker. Unfortunately, he's going to go to a place where he's never going to start, despite being one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the league already. Really, at 72? Is the league that bad? So, I think we would have been happy here. He does not have to throw the ball away though, and he has conservative decision maker. That might be a pretty bad combo. But if we drafted him, it would have been a 2nd round pick. So if he didn't turn out to be the franchise quarterback, it wouldn't have been devastating to this franchise, like Kevin Blatchford not being the franchise quarterback would be. Keontae Turner, the best tackler here. Run stopper, middle linebacker. Didn't look at him despite being a 78 overall. Really good run stopper. Just not super athletic to play coverage. Good pick. I think I'm pretty much done looking at the classes. Let's look at the rest of our division. So we'll start here with the Bills. See what they did. DeAndre Samuel, we saw them get Kilgore. So let's look at their other guy, Samuel, here real quick. Hidden dev, power rusher. Good strength for sure. Really high injury, but really low stamina. He's going to get tired a lot. Star dev. Next up on the list, we've got Dolphins. Jose Gonzalez, 21 years old. Low 70s with Star Dev. Caleb Morrell, another hidden dev, 21-year-old coverage linebacker with okay speed. Certainly you can work with that speed. Anything 85 plus is doable. Another star dev. And their third 70 plus is Paul Bailey, who I think had the highest deep route in the class he did. They like their deep threats. And then lastly here, we've got the Jets. We went David Owens over Charlie Kyle. That's right. I totally forgot the Jets were in our division and they're the team that made both New York teams saved our buns. They did get William Goldson though. I forgot. I wanted to look at him. 6'8", 230. Good short route running, solid deep route running. Can't run a medium route. Not super fast. 81 injury, 86 stamina with 23 normal. Despite the fact that he's really fun, I don't know what I'm doing this for. He's normal dev. It'll be fun to see him though. He'll play. We'll see a 6'8" receiver on the field. But that is all I've got here for this episode. A very, very surprising draft. We end up getting the best player in it and still somehow ending up with the player that I thought I was going to get with my first pick after that as well. I think given our house rules, we did about as good of as we could have this offseason. I think we built ourselves a respectable roster here for year 2. Not to the point where I think we're going to be good, but to the point where I think, you know, we're an NFL team now. And I don't think we were an NFL team last year. And so I think we'll see more fun competitive games next season. And probably shouldn't have left this till the end, but I want to stream the preseason. So I'll be doing that tomorrow. So if you have some time, come hang out with me and watch the preseason Memphis Thunderbird action. And until then, go Thunderbirds.